And we'll go ahead and launch the meeting and not lose any more time. And I'll just follow Tina's advice and not take it too seriously about having quorum yet until the board meeting. Okay, so welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us to the first of our two meetings. We have two meetings at a time. One is for the general membership and comes first. And then we follow that with a board meeting where we, if all goes well, tend to board business. Tonight, we're going to talk at the board meeting about what's going on with us, where we stand, what our future might look like, and continue that discussion into the future. Okay, but in the meantime, let's start with our general meeting. Although we're going to wait on quorum till the board meeting, I would still like those board members present to say their names and their title if they have one, if they're an officer, and then what their primary motivation is for serving on the board. Laura Lee, would you like to go first?
Yes, I'm sorry. I'm just playing with a whole bunch of backgrounds. Now apparently I'm on a movie screen. I'm Laura Lee Cole, and I am secretary on the board. I've been a member of BDNA for about 3 years now, and I've lived in the neighborhood for 11 years. And before that, I lived in the Woodstock neighborhood, and before that in the Creston Kenilworth neighborhood. So I'm an East Side family. My motivation for joining the board was to learn more about this neighborhood and also be more aware of what's going on and try to make it a closer knit community.
Okay, thank you very much. Kim DeLeo.
Hi, Kim DeLeo, she, her pronouns. I've been on the board for, 2.5 years now. And I'm sorry, what else am I supposed to say?
Let's see, whether you're an officer, so you can say that you're our liaison.
Oh,
and
sure.
Then,
okay.
And your primary motivation for serving.
Okay, yeah, thank you. So I do sit, I'm the liaison for Southeast Uplift. And primary interest initially was I was very angry about the speeding on Duke Street, as Stephanie can attest to. And then also interested, now that we've completed the home remodel and things have calmed down, just being more active in the neighborhood.
Okay, very fine. All right, who else do we have? We don't have Derek yet. Gail. Vivian, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi everybody, I'm Vivian. She, her pronouns. I've been in the neighborhood for about 5 years, and I lived here about 10 years ago for a year or two. I'm relatively new on the board. I think it was only earlier in the spring, I want to say. No, last fall. Time passes very quickly. And my motivation is, I think, like Kim and Lorelei mentioned, just being more aware and more connected with other people in the neighborhood, and building the sense of community and safety for Brentwood Darlington. And yeah.
Okay, thank you very much, Vivian. And I'll go next. I'm Stephanie Frederick. I'm the chair of the Neighborhood Association. I've lived here for about 6.5 years. And I have joined the Neighborhood Association because I want to serve our neighborhood. And in particular, in this, during these last 10 months, it's been important to me to learn the neighborhood, make connections, forge partnerships, and work with Impact Northwest on opening up the community center to our neighborhood, and make other plans for the community center that I think are very worthwhile. I have always lots of ideas about what I'd like to see happen, but the reality of what we can accomplish, of course, is something that one always has to deal with. So Thank you very much, board members. And I would like our other visitors, please, to our visitors or advisors to please introduce themselves. Lisa Jameson, would you go next?
I am Lisa Jameson, she, her pronouns, and I'm new to the neighborhood, moved in November, lived in Woodstock before that, and I am both a beacon volunteer and a neighborhood emergency team volunteer, and I'm interested in all that kind of stuff and emergency prep for the community, and I'm also very interested in the community center.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Ernie, why don't you go next?
Yeah, hi there. Thanks for having me. Thanks, Lisa, for getting me here. My name's Ernest Jones. Feel free to call me Ernie. I live in the King neighborhood, and I work for the Portland Bureau of Emergency Management. That's the PBIM you see next to my name on the screen there. And I've been with the Bureau of Emergency Management. Next month, it'll be 8 years. I run the Beacon program, which stands for Basic Earthquake Emergency Communications Node. And I'll be talking about that, of course, this evening. What that is and how it works. And I also, at the Bureau of Emergency Management, we have about 2,100 volunteers, and 450 of them approximately are licensed amateur radio operators, and I coordinate the activities of our licensed amateur radio operators. And I'm also a duty officer, which is a different thing. And yeah, that's it. That's it for me.
Wow, that's a lot. Okay, thank you very much and welcome. Tina, would you introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Tina, and I don't know, I'm attached to the board off and on. I head up the crafting circle and the spring environmental collection that we did last spring, and before that, just before COVID hit big time. And I'm looking forward to potentially doing it next year. It kind of depends on how the board evolves and what happens. I've been in my current house going on just over 8 years, and I've been in and out of Brentwood Darlington since 2000. And why do I help out with all of this? Because I believe in walking my talk, and that means if I'm part of a community, that means I have to actually be a part of that community. That means putting forth and offering services to the people around me, helping feed people, create opportunities for those that could benefit from them. And that kind of helps feed my soul.
Thank you very much, Tina. You do wonderful things, and we really appreciate you. Lance Means, could you introduce yourself, please?
I'm Lance Means. I actually went to Whitman, so I've been a part of this neighborhood for a long time. I did move away for a bit, but I moved back in 2000, so I've been here for 23 years after grade school. And I am your Brentwood Darlington Net team lead. We'll talk about the nets here in a little bit. And I wanted to do that because of an event that happened downtown when everybody probably remembers a building exploding. And there was all these people running around in orange vests, and I was like, who's that? And I found out who it was, and I was like, I want to do that.
Okay, and so you did.
So I did.
All right, very fine, thank you. Well, we look forward to your presentation this evening. Thank you very much. Jake Potosky, could you introduce yourself to us?
Yeah, sure thing. My name is Jake Potosky. I use he, him pronouns. I am relatively new to the Brentwood Darlington area. Moved here about a year ago, a little bit over a year ago. I'm over on rural east of 72nd over here. And I'm pretty new to Portland too. I've only been here for a little bit over 2 years now. Moved here, fell in love, said, I want a house, I want to live here. And thankfully ended up here in Brentwood Darlington by way of Southern Oregon. I'd been down in the Medford area for about the past 5 years before that. But I grew up and I was born in Austin, Texas. And my partner Danae, she is also, she's in the same boat as me. We love community, we love building community. I come from a political organizing and online advocacy background, so got a lot of digital communication skills and a lot of just community building skills, which I'd love to bring to bear here in the neighborhood. So it's my first board meeting. Just thought I'd stop by, see how it all runs, and see where I might be able to pitch in here and there. I'm going to be making some dinner while listening, so I may turn my video off here. And I mean, no disrespect, but definitely going to be listening in.
Okay, very fine. Then go ahead and make your dinner, and we'll know that you're listening. Then okay, and thank you very much. Okay, Deb Espesete, is that how you pronounce your name?
Yeah, Deb Espeseta and John Hartog.
Okay.
Oh my gosh, you're looking very weird. Like, thank you for the board for everything you do for Brentwood Darlington. We've been here 13 years, and neither of us are in the neighborhood emergency teams. I am been trying to get on, but I'm on the Medical Reserve Corps, the state emergency response volunteers for Multnomah County, and I am looking forward to meeting the local net and networking, participating, so I'm excited to be here to hear information about that and have seen the beacon stuff and excited to know that that's nearby.
Okay, very fine. Thank you so much. Good to meet you. Thank you and welcome. All right, so now we have done our meeting launch and introductions. I just want to point out that this is the general meeting, which is for the general membership, and it will be followed by a separate meeting, which will be the board meeting, at which we will be discussing our present situation and where we go from here. I do want to say that going forward, we're going to conduct our meetings a little differently than we have in the past, because I became aware that we are violating part of our bylaws that allow the public, our residents, to have input to our agendas. And I just had never understood this, and nobody ever brought it up, and no one ever practiced it. So beginning in October, I'm going to be advertising to the neighborhood that how to suggest agenda items for board approval. So we'll have a little bit more democracy going on if people in fact respond to our invitation. But in any case, we'll see how that goes, and see if we can become more of a forum and less of a kind of closed presentation formats. So that's I've begun that by severely separating the two agendas, and so in any notice that you received two agendas, one for the general meeting, one for the board. All right, to go on to our forum, Exploring Brentwood Darlington, at the very last moment, our featured guest, who is a local photographer, had to cancel because her husband and her child are both very ill and she has to care for them. So we will see her in October, I hope. Her name is Ashley Bem, and she specializes in the photography of families, mothers-to-be, and new mothers and their babies. And so she's another one of our wonderful residents who operates a business out of their home. All right, so now it is 6:50, so we're running a little bit early, which I think Lisa warned Lance and Ernie that we might be doing, but rather than I know what I can do. I can give us a little bit of update, some announcements, and then we'll be more in line with our schedule, and although still a little bit on the early side. So one of the two things I wanted to mention to everybody, and we'll post these as takeaways after the meeting, that 82nd Avenue now belongs to the city of Portland after years of heated wrangling between the state and the city. The handover finally occurred, and PBOT has money to invest in 82nd Avenue, and is going to be making a lot of changes in the whole stretch that lies within the city limits. Down our way, we will see improved street lighting and some improved crossings in the immediate future. And then there's a long-term plan for upgrading all of 82nd Avenue as PBOT goes forward. So you can find out details by Googling building a better 82nd. It's very interesting to see what PBOT has planned for the avenue, and it's very exciting to us because it's our eastern boundary, and it's been pretty decrepit looking, and it's now going to get not just facelift, but actual infrastructure improvements that are going to benefit people who live in that area. And then second update, for years now, we've been waiting for PBOT to build our greenway, east-west greenway between 52nd and 82nd Avenue. And at the same time, fill in the sidewalks on Duke Street and on Flavel Street, again, between 52nd and 82nd. We've waited a long time for this. The federal funding didn't become available until last year, and PBOT has been struggling mightily to try to make our projects happen, but it's suffered staff loss and budget shortfalls. Nevertheless, they have sacrificed themselves to try to keep this project going, and we are hoping that we'll start to see some actual sidewalk lay down by the end of this calendar year. They've done all their things that they need to do to get temporary use of land to lay down sidewalk and so on. And now they're getting some approvals from federal oversight people because of the federal funding. But we should see actual sidewalk building by the end of this year. So that's kind of exciting. It's been 5 years in the works, and there's nothing that people, I don't fault PBOT at all. They've really tried hard to keep this project alive and sacrificed internal funds and staff time for us. So I'm sorry that it's delayed, but I'm also very grateful. Okay, those are our two updates. So now I would like to go to our presenters, please. We're going to have a presentation about the neighborhood emergency team by Lisa, right? And or Lance, excuse me, by Lance, I beg your pardon. And then a presentation by Ernie Jones on Beacon. So Lance, go ahead and proceed. And thank you for being with us.
Well, thank you for having me, and also thank you for allowing us to have our meetings at the community center. It's been very nice.
Oh, good.
So for those of you that I don't know how much everybody knows about the NET program, we are, every neighborhood has a team. PBIM has broken the nets different from CERT. The nets are actually by neighborhood, so some have a very small neighborhood, others have a very large neighborhood, like Lentz is pretty big and Brentwood Darlington is pretty big, but others are small. Anyway, we go through 4 weeks of training, 1 day a week, and then we have a final exercise that we need to pass, and we become a net. I've been a net for 4 years, been a team lead for 2.5. I in the early days, I did a lot with the Southeast Nets, which was a group which included the Brentwood Darlington Nets and the Woodstock and Reed and a couple others, just because we didn't have enough people. Now we have enough people. Brentwood Darlington has on paper 21 active nets, which is great. We can always use more.
21 what?
active nets.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, well, given the size of our neighborhood, that's a good number. We some more notes. Sorry. We've been trained, all of the nets have been trained to respond to up to and including the earthquake. Typically though, we get deployed to warming shelters or cooling shelters when it's hot. We got deployed to Clackamas Town Center with the wildfire evacuations. During the winter, down power lines, we manage down power lines so the fire department can actually do their old job instead of leaving firemen babysitting power lines, things like that. We clear blocked storm drains so we can make sure the streets aren't flooded. So we do a lot of things other than, just wait for an earthquake. There's also ongoing training we can take. Portland police let us occasionally use their scenario village, which is a kind of a little warehouse complex that has a little town inside. And we do emergency scenarios and things like that. It's pretty fun. So if anybody's curious about becoming a net, there's things to do that make it entertaining, and also you get trained for any emergency.
Okay,
We
Laura Lee,
started-
Laura Lee, is it all right if we stop and ask questions, Lance?
Oh, absolutely.
Laura Lee has a question.
Hi, I was curious on how do you get called into action? Do the fire department and the police department have the list of
So
in each neighborhood?
the fire department and the police coordinate with PBEM, and PBEM actually deploys us. In the event of a major emergency and we can't get, like an earthquake, and we can't get a hold of PBEM, we can self-deploy, but they don't particularly want us to do that unless it's a major emergency. But PBEM has all of our numbers, and they're able to say something happened in Foster Pal, they have the ability to ring all the net phones just in Foster Pal and activate them all at once. And they send us emails and texts, and so we're actually managed by PBEM. If that answers your question.
Which is the Portland Bureau of Emergency Management.
It does answer my question. Thank you so much.
Yeah. So we started having meetings, Brown Darlington net meetings right before COVID. Everything started coming together great, and then COVID happened and it all fell apart. So we have just recently started having meetings again. We're trying to do some more community outreach. We were at the movie in the park. Talked to a couple people there that seemed interested in joining us.
Excuse me, just for a moment. Kim, did you still have a question?
I do. A couple comments and a question. So what would the time commitment be for someone beyond the training to be a member of the net team?
So to maintain an active status in the net, you'd need to go through the training, and then 12 volunteer hours a year is all you have to do.
Yeah.
And that's actually really easy. You can do that in a couple months. It's if you want to, and we have monthly meetings that last an hour. So if you just go to a meeting, you're
That's reasonable. I wanted to also introduce myself. I'm Kim DeLeo. I supervise the medical examiner's office for Multnomah County. So if you ever have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. And just to let everybody know, I mean, the net teams are such a great resource for the neighborhood. So I encourage anybody who's interested to apply. I may even do some myself, so.
Yeah,
May see.
please.
That would be
We
great.
can, we always accept new members. It's nice to keep adding new people.
Hey, Lance, could I jump in for just a second?
Of course.
So one of the things that we've just started doing is of having folks that are going to be affiliated volunteers that don't go through the whole training, but have some kind of skills that they know that they're going to offer when there's an emergency. So you could contact Lance to find out more about that. We of course want people that have gone through the whole training. But if you're a physician or a nurse, or you know how to wield a chainsaw, or you know anything that would be useful in the event of a big disaster, then you could become affiliated with the team. They would run a background check on you. You'd get a little badge that meant that we knew who you were, and that would also be beneficial.
Yep. And if you have a neighbor that you know is a doctor or nurse or EMT, or even somebody who's really good at taking notes, we can use everybody.
I wonder
Even
if
if you're not mobile, we can literally use everybody.
Mhm.
Okay, so we've been joined by Derek Covey. Welcome, Derek. Thank you very much for joining us. We're listening to a presentation about the neighborhood emergency team. Okay, go ahead, Lance.
Oh, sorry. So we are hoping to, in the near future, continue more community outreach, try to make ourselves more visible, find more affiliated volunteers, recruit new nets that will go through the training, and also anybody that is interested, feel free to come to a meeting. Our meetings are every fourth Thursday now at I think I haven't talked to Lisa about this yet, but 6:30 might work better for everybody instead of 6.
I think that's what we talked about. Yeah.
Yeah. So Thursday, 6:30. If you're interested, you have any questions?
At the BDCC, right?
Right.
Yes.
Can I jump in one more time?
Oh, of course, anytime.
So one of the things that we try to do when we can is to do community education about disaster prep. And that's something that I'm particularly interested in. And when we get more people that are active on the team, what we may do is divide up the neighborhood and you know do some sort of canvassing to help people know about that. When we table, we're not only recruiting nets, we're also providing emergency prep information, which we did at the movie. And we would like to do at other events. So if there are things going on, let us know, because we really want to spread the word about how important it is for folks to do their own home emergency prep as well.
Mhm.
Thanks.
Yeah, and along those lines, best case, we have 21 people. That's if something happens when everybody's home and everybody's fine after whatever happens. The more people that can take care of themselves that don't need us, the more we can help people that do need us, right? So the more people we can get prepared, the better. Yeah. That's
So do
definitely
you
something.
help, I have a question. Do you help people visualize what it's going to look like when we have that big terrifying earthquake that we so fear? So I think it's going to be pretty widespread damage, fire.
So what our guidelines are is plan on 2 weeks without emergency services.
So our training includes medical triage, helping people get out from under parts of buildings, all kinds of stuff. And not everybody's going to do everything. I'm not going to be lifting out anybody from under concrete, but there's a lot of stuff to do. So, you know, we're trained in a bunch of areas with the understanding that we're not all going to do all of them. We're going to do what we're able to do. And the understanding also is that if and when a big earthquake happens, first we take care of ourselves, and then we take care of our families, and then we go show up and do what needs to be done as nets. So so as I said, the training encompasses many things. So we do talk about what's a likely scenario, but we also have to be realistic about, if we have 20 people covering Brentwood Darlington, that's not a lot. So the bigger the team is, the more people that are likely to be able to actually show up if something like that happens. But I just wanted to give a pitch for being a net, because I really love being a net, and I think this is a fabulous program. The program is community emergency response all over the country, right? It's a federal program. In every other state, they're called CERTs, but here we're called NETs because the SWAT team is called SERT, CERT.
Because Portland.
Yeah, they didn't want us confused. And but in a lot of areas people are trained and then they're just sort of waiting for a big thing to happen. But here we get deployed all the time, and it's completely optional. They send out a notice. If you can go, you go, and if you can't, you can't. There's no pressure. But over the past few years since I've been a net here, we've deployed to the warming and cooling shelters and the other sites that Lance mentioned. And also during COVID, I deployed many times to testing sites and vaccination sites. And they really, really use us. And, it's an incredible resource for the community. Just thousands and thousands of volunteer hours. So I'm very enthusiastic about this program, and I hope other people will consider joining.
Oh,
Thanks.
well, thank you for all that you're doing. Yeah, we really need that kind of assistance and support. Yeah, it's great. Okay, so what else, Lance?
Well,
you.
To my last thing here is we were contacted by the principal of Whitman, wants to work with us. We're probably also going to reach out to the principal of Lane and there's a couple more smaller schools that we might talk to as well. Whitman's principal is interested in what she can do for emergency planning for the school. So we're gonna hopefully partner with her and get them a good plan. So other schools or nonprofits and anybody that wants information from us, we will work with. We'll help them get prepped and ready to go, because like I said earlier, the more self-sufficient people are, the better the whole neighborhood is going to be if something does happen. But yeah, we're starting to get some momentum. We got a brand new member last week or 2 weeks ago.
We actually got 2 because I met another one at Net Camp.
Oh, nice. Very nice. So 2, yeah, we're rolling now.
And one of the things that we hope to do soon, and we're hoping that it can be at the community center, is to develop a cache of emergency supplies. So medical supplies and rescue supplies and that kind of thing. So that's something for the future, we realize, but that's something that we want to start working on. And one other thing I wanted to add is that there are what are called teen CERT programs, and they're typically, I think, in junior high schools, middle schools, high schools. And a few of them have happened in various communities in Portland. And I don't think one has ever happened in this community, but they focus on underserved communities, which I would argue Brentwood Darlington is. And so we may be able to work on getting something like that established, which would be great. Another long-term plan.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, that's very exciting. Involving kids. That's great. And I am going to ask about that mysterious container at the BDCC. What is in there? So it's on my list. I haven't forgotten it. I just haven't had the opportunity yet.
Right. Oh, and Lance, someone has asked, would you put your contact information in the chat?
Oh, of course.
Yeah, and you can go to the Portland Bureau of Emergency Management and type in NET, and there's a bunch of information about when the next trainings are going to be and what they entail and that sort of thing.
Yeah, and there's also, in addition to NET, something that I think we should pursue is there's a PBM calls it COAD, COAD. Community organization active in a disaster. These would be companies that would prepare and aid with whatever they do. If they can offer space, they can store a couple crates of water or whatever they can do, and just be ready in case something were to happen.
So I know Stephanie's participated a little bit and I've participated a little bit, but as far as I know, there aren't any organizations in Brentwood Darlington. I could be wrong, but when I spoke to the coordinator, it sounded like typically it's churches, community centers, those kinds of organizations that would belong. And you can look them up on the PBEM site also. Get on the mailing list, find out what's going on.
Okay, but so we don't have any entrants in that list, huh? Okay, because we have very few institutions here.
A bunch of churches in the neighborhood and some other stuff, so
Mhm.
anyway, a separate topic, but
Yeah.
Right, very fine. So, Derek, I want to ask you as TriMet driver, you have received emergency training, and are you involved in helping in plans to transport people to shelters and so on in connection with emergencies that NET would be associated with? Can you hear me? We can't hear you.
Okay, I can hear you, Stephanie. Connection's not good, but I can hear you.
Okay. And go ahead.
So you talked about emergency training?
Yeah, as a bus driver.
Okay. Well, I don't know. There is some training there that I've gotten. And recently I got a recommendation. I'll share that with you in an email. I'm not able to send it to you right now, but yeah, there is training there at TriMet. So, but I do know one rule.
You just dropped out. Okay, well, okay, so Derek,
I'm sorry.
we can't hear you. And I just wondered if I wanted to
Oh, you can't. Oh, yeah, I've got tap to speak, but it sounds isn't working.
Okay, well, I can hear you now. I just wanted to supplement Lance's presentation with any information you might have about how TriMet operators are any instruction they received in how to behave in
Well,
emergencies.
what we do is we're trained in emergency to contact dispatch directly, and so we have a radio at each of the buses, and so communicate with them. I've had people that have had serious medical issues, and so when I contact dispatch, it's a matter of you see the fire department show up, and then you'll see what is AMR, the ambulance company in Multnomah County. They'll show up, but basically we're in contact with dispatch, which is a kind of a network of operators, and so we basically contact them. And then I have all the support I need. There's a road supervisors that are mobile. They can come to my bus if I need them.
I see. So in a big emergency, like an earthquake, where the roads are likely to be littered with debris and cars that are no longer functioning and so on, your bus service will be pretty much stopped. It's going to be hard for people to get to emergency centers using public transit, probably.
This is true. What you know.
Okay, we're just not getting your input here. So let's go.
It seems like a good time to let Ernie start talking, because that's
yes. Okay, Lance, we're going to stop now, Derek, and thank Lance for his presentation, and we will do a takeaway on your presentation and advertise for volunteers on behalf of NET, because it's certainly self-beneficial for us to do that. Okay, let's go to Ernie Jones, who's going to tell us about Beacon, BEECN.
Yep, no, thank you very much. Thanks again. And can you please remind me about how long do you want me to speak for? I can do 5 or 10 minutes. I can speak for hours.
Oh, I
Whatever
see.
works
Well,
for you.
why don't you aim at 15 because we're
Sounds good.
very
Yep.
ahead of
No,
schedule.
that's perfect. Thank you. So, thank you, Lance and Lisa, very much. And I'll add that the neighborhood emergency teams in Portland, which is Lisa mentioned, is the same as, or Lance mentioned, is the same as CERT, community emergency response teams all over the rest of the country. We're the largest program in the United States, and we have more net members than New York City has CERT members, which is great for us. You know, it's a shame for New York City, but we're very proud of the program, and that it's that the city of Portland supports. There's currently 3 full-time people, myself and Glenn Devitt and Jeremy Van Kuren, who work directly with volunteers. So anyway, it's a great thing. So I'll also add to my introduction. Before I started working for the Bureau of Emergency Management, I used to work for FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Agency. I worked for them for 22 years, and I worked all sorts of disasters in over half the states in the U.S. and many of the big disasters you've heard of over the years. When I started with it, and then I became the first person at PBIM, the Beacon program, Basic Earthquake Emergency Communications Node program, started in 2012. I was hired in 2015 and was the first person whose primary responsibility was the Beacon program. And what I could do, if it's all right with you, is show a few slides and also show folks a couple of websites, if that's all right, if it's okay for me to do some screen sharing. Would that be all right?
Yes.
If not, or if it's a
No,
problem.
you should be able to screen share without difficulty.
Okay, great. Let's see. Let's
The bottom
I
of your
will pull up my, whoops. Let's see if I can make that work. Let's see here. Here we go. Okay. So, okay. And I think you're seeing a slide right now. Is that right?
Yes, we are.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, so the purpose of the Beacon program is to when there's a big earthquake or some other calamity that takes down power lines and phone lines in particular, which we know will happen at some point. We won't have power, water, other utilities, and we also know that as we can see in this slide, maybe nobody got hurt here, hopefully, but I bet this sort of ruined a day for some people.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, this is from Alaska in 2018, an earthquake they had in Alaska. So and I'm going to zip through a few slides here, so bear with me. Our usual ways of communicating won't happen after phone lines come down, and we also know that give or take a few percentage points, anywhere around 95% of people who are helped, rescued, or saved after a disaster are helped, rescued, or saved by their neighbors, period, by their neighbors. And which is why we are just very proud of our NET team, Neighborhood Emergency Team folks. So Beacon volunteers as well work in their neighborhoods to help neighbors, and can communicate with our Emergency Coordination Center. We'll look at how that communication works in just a moment. I mentioned that there are about 2,100 NETs, Neighborhood Emergency Team volunteers, and there are about 380 Beacon volunteers. About 2/3 of about 200, a little more than 200 of those are actually Neighborhood Emergency Team volunteers as well. So we have a bunch of nets. And what I will do here is I will show a 3-minute video that's going to give you a good overview of the Beacon program, and then we'll take a look at how you can find that on your own at a future date. So 3 minutes. Here we go.
Fire Station 18. It's called a beacon cache. It's basically a rolling storage box that includes all kinds of information, emergency equipment, and a radio. It's a place for people to get information post-disaster, and it's also a place for people to report life-threatening injuries or significant damage. We have a pop-up shelter. We have 48 beacon sites that are geographically distributed throughout the city. Places like parks, school fields, and a few other miscellaneous facilities. I think an important thing to remember is, if you can stay home and you have no reason to leave your house and it's safe to stay there, you should probably just stay there. If you do need more information, then you can approach a beacon. I think one thing you do need to recognize is it can take 24 to 48 hours for these beacon sites to pop up. We have a lantern, a UHF radio. You'll also see an extra tent top in here. This is the larger first aid kit. There's 2 of them. This has most of your bulk supplies.
Such as bandages?
Bandages, gloves, trauma dressings, cold packs, space blankets. This is more of the consumables. So we have duct tape, we have respirators, these are eyewear, eye protection. In the event of a large earthquake, the city of Portland might lose the ability to communicate, particularly telephones, cell phones, and email and internet. Beacons are designed to allow people to get information about a disaster and also report damage and a life-threatening situation. Inside each beacon cache is a simple UHF radio. Those radios are used to speak with nearby fire stations. We have asked amateur radio operators to staff those nearby fire stations, and then they can actually speak with the city's emergency coordination center.
After the city is performing damage assessment.
This is really low tech. All it is a UHF radio. It's point to point, it's line of sight. It doesn't involve any intermediary equipment, and it allows you at the beacon to speak with a nearby fire station. We did a small scale drill. We tested about a quarter of the beacon program not too long ago. We were able to communicate with all the beacons involved, and we were pretty excited to see that happen. Right now, we've been primarily working with the Portland Neighborhood Emergency Team Program. They're called NETs. They are...
Oh, crumb. Sorry, that's my fault there. We were right at the end of the video, so I will let it end there. But all the critical content of the video was shared. It was right at the very end. So sorry about that. Not sure what happened there. Let me move right along. What I will do, we talked about neighborhood emergency team, folks. The beacon's key task is to ensure post-disaster communication. That's the number one, you heard Dave talk about in the video there. If someone's got a life-threatening situation, that's the number one radio traffic priority is life safety information. And we also want to be able to get information from the Emergency Coordination Center to provide to beacon sites, like what bridges are open, what hospitals are open, that sort of thing. And possibly if a disaster's been going on for a while, where people can get water, that sort of information. And the Beacon program was launched in 2012, as I mentioned earlier, and the Beacon program has 3 elements, primary elements: volunteers, locations, and equipment. And I'm going to talk about locations here real quick. Let me see if I can go to a different screen share, if I can figure out how to do that effectively here. And I see that I've, let's see, excuse me just a moment. What I want to do is, and excuse me a sec here, let me stop screen sharing and get onto my computer, and I will, I want to show you 2 web pages, and let's see here, let's get back onto the screen share, excuse me. Okay, here we go. So portland.gov, and I think you're seeing half of a web page here. Let's get on to the Beacon webpage. And if you go to portland.gov/PBIM for Portland Bureau of Emergency Management, you'll see the Portland Bureau of Emergency Management webpage, and scrolling down there, you come to the Beacon webpage, basic earthquake emergency communications node. And despite what you see at the top of your screen, if you go to portland.gov/beacon, BEECN, it will take you to this page. And if you scroll down, two bits I'd like to show you. One, how to find the beacon site nearest your house or your workplace or whatever address you enter. And come here. I'm going to put in the address of our office in Southeast Portland, near 99th and Powell. There we go. And that will tell us and the blue teardrop that we see here is the address that I entered, and this software is telling us that Mill Park and Gilbert Heights Elementary School fields are the closest beacon sites. However, if we look at this, if we click on this other teardrop that's clearly closer, we see that's Lentz Park, which is another beacon site. But the software recognizes that there may be a barrier you may not be able to cross after a large-scale earthquake. So in this case, Interstate 205, which is the white stripe you see running down the middle of the screen there, might be a collapsed roadway after a large-scale earthquake. And so the software recognizes things like the Willamette River and Johnson Creek and Interstate 5 and that sort of thing. So anyway, good, quick, very easy to use resource there. The other thing I will show you real quick is the map of the beacon sites. There are other maps on the web page, and lots of information if you go through the web page. But this is a real easy to access and easy to understand map of all the beacon sites, and has a map of the beacon sites and then the addresses and locations of the associated beacon sites. So if you look at SE42, and we scroll down to SE42 here, we see that's Flavel Park, which is a beacon site. And the video talked about 48 beacon sites, which there were back when the video was made, but there are now 50 beacon sites in Portland, 50, and we've capped the number at 50 because of the potential radio traffic that could be generated from a large-scale earthquake. And I'm just looking at my clock there, and I guess we got about just over 2 minutes left. And
oh no, take your time. Go ahead.
Okay. Anyway, well, I'll go back to the slides real quick here, but if folks have questions, please do toss them out verbally, because I'm not seeing the chat right now.
Okay, so your basic function is to communicate with the fire stations and city emergency teams and tell them what is going on the ground, where you're reporting from?
Yeah, let me jump ahead real quick here to so this is the communication, the daisy chain of communication that happens to and from a beacon site. So we see on the left hand side of the screen there's a handheld UHF. Those are stands for ultra high frequency radios.
We're not seeing anything.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, sorry. Sorry. And go. Sorry about that. Let's see. So I think you're seeing me scroll through slides at the moment. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, good. Okay, let's get to the right slide then. Okay. There we go. Okay, sorry about that. So left side of the screen, we see the two volunteers with the handheld UHF. That's ultra high frequency radio, which is the simple radio we saw in the video and in the slide that works like a walkie-talkie. Push to talk, let go to listen. And so that radio communicates with another person, another beacon volunteer at a nearby fire station that has the same kind of radio. And then also at fire stations throughout the city, we have beacon volunteers who are amateur radio operators, ham radio people, and they have a bigger, more powerful radio that's stored at each fire station, and that radio can communicate with our emergency coordination center. And you see on the slide it says amateur VHF radio, and that's stands for very high frequency radio. And so that's the daisy chain of communication that we have in the beacon system. And if we look here at this slide, we see a sort of a bigger picture. We see that in the center of the screen, there's volunteers at Fire Station 4 in this case, and we see that each fire station is actually a hub handling communications for most fire stations between 2 and 5 beacon sites. And again, each fire station, or volunteers at each fire station, communicating with our emergency coordination center. Yeah, and this is a photograph of about a third of the room of the emergency coordination center. A lot of people refer to our building, the emergency coordination center, but really this room that we see in this slide is the emergency coordination center, which is set up in pods. And we have folks from different bureaus from around the city, as well as different agencies, other organizations as well, like Multnomah County and AMR, the ambulance people, American Medical Response, TriMet, et cetera, et cetera. And next to the radio room, right next door is, next to the emergency coordination center is the radio room. And this is where the messages are actually coming in from the beacon sites. And we do beacon drills about 4 times a year. Usually anywhere between 12 and 25 beacon sites participate in each drill. And we've got one coming up on October 14th. And yeah, so I will go ahead and let's see. I will stop sharing here and take any questions that anyone might have. Lisa, looked like you had a question or a comment you wanted to make.
Yeah, I just wondered if we could bring it down to the level of Brentwood Darlington.
Yeah.
I will say that there are 4 of us that are beacon volunteers for Brentwood Darlington, and we could use some more. So Ernie, could you talk a little bit about what it takes to become a volunteer?
Yeah, thank you. Good question. So to be a beacon volunteer, it's intentionally a much lighter lift, so to speak, compared to the neighborhood emergency team folks. To be a beacon volunteer, you need to take a beacon training, which is free of charge, 90 minutes long. I do them once a month online on Zoom, like we're doing here. And but I'll also show, if you've got a group of 8 people or more, I'm happy to show up in person and do or online and do a training anytime, any place that works for folks. So again, it's a 90-minute training, and unlike the NETs, there's no continuing education or deployment requirement to maintain your volunteer status as a beacon volunteer. There's, as Lisa suggested, there's 4 beacon volunteers associated with the Flavel Park beacon site. We would love to have 8. Every beacon site, the goal for each beacon site is to have 8 volunteers. And again, hour-and-a-half training. The beacon webpage that you saw earlier, portland.gov/beacon, BEECN. If you scroll down a little further than we did a moment ago, you'll see the upcoming beacon trainings that you can sign up for. There's one on September 18th and one in October, I forget the date, but they're both Monday evenings from 6 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. So 90 minutes, and that's how you become. And becoming a beacon volunteer also involves, as Lisa suggested earlier, a background check as with all of our volunteers. And we're not checking for your driving record. Maybe we should, but we're not. We're checking to make sure that you don't have convictions involving hurting other people and certain types of theft within certain periods of time. I never remember the details on that, but yeah, that's what it. And then you also, to become a volunteer, the last thing you have to do is agree to our code of conduct, which basically says that you'll treat people respectfully, you won't steal things, and you will not bring weapons, things that are intended to be weapons, to volunteer activities. Yeah, so that's what it takes to become a volunteer. And Laura Lee, maybe you had a question. Oh no, that's my cursor on Laura Lee's name. Sorry.
I see. Okay.
Any other questions?
How do you get that cool radio?
The radio, so we actually are amateur radio volunteers. There's the small handheld radio that you don't have to have a license for, that Beacon volunteers use. Very simple to use. We've had a bunch of thefts and vandalisms at Beacon sites over the years, and I fear that people will take the radio and think, oh, this is great, I can have this radio, and the Beacon radios only work within the Beacon system. You can't like turn it to channel 2 and then buy a radio at the store of the same brand and model and turn to channel 2. It won't work. The frequencies are programmed in, and so the radios are cool, but they have very specific uses. However, I'll also mention that our amateur radio volunteers, wonderful group, they do free trainings every fall and every spring for people who want to learn about and get amateur radio licenses. And so that's another opportunity for folks if that's something that's of interest.
I think, Stephanie, the radios for our group cost about $5 or $6 grand a piece, and in order to program them, it was another like $3 grand in software.
Oh,
yeah.
Word.
So we're operating with a lot of hand-me-downs from EMS.
Oh my word, that is very expensive.
They're pricey.
Yeah, you don't have to spend anywhere near that much to get a decent radio, but you can. Amateur radio stuff. It's one of those things that it goes as deep and as far as you want, and further. Yeah, it keeps on going. Yeah. But it's also possible to use, again, very simple radios that don't involve a lot of training. And people think, the Beacon training, I spend about 5 or 10 minutes talking about actually instructing radios. It's not, the Beacon training involves the system, the Beacon system. The radios are very, very simple to use. And you can see on the Beacon webpage there's a 1.5 minute video on how to use the radios.
Oh, very fine. Okay.
You can check out.
Very good. All right. So Beacon volunteers if they're also net volunteers, there may be a conflict, right? The Beacon volunteers need to just be able to communicate with the site at the park, or they're supposed to show up at the park.
Yeah, so it so happens that many of our Beacon volunteers are net volunteers. They don't have to be at all. There's, we've got 150 Beacon volunteers who are not nets at all, which is just fine. Is there a conflict of interest? No. However, it's, every neighborhood is, people will want to know what their priorities are. And, I live in the King neighborhood. We've got a very small group of nets and a bigger group of Beacon volunteers at Alberta Park. In Brentwood, Darlington, it's the opposite. There's a couple, it sounds like there's about a couple dozen nets, but only 4 or so Beacon volunteers. So it's going to vary with every neighborhood, and each individual person can determine their priorities. And as you heard in the video, Beacon sites won't come up for 24 to 48 hours after phone lines go down. Nets are trained to react rather immediately if they're able, after phone lines go down, or the big earthquake, whatever calamity happens.
Okay, Laura Lee, you have a question.
Yeah, I did have a question. You just foresaw my question before I had my question, Ernie. So I used to work at the Montevilla Community Center, and we had you guys come out with, we have a setup there. They have a setup, not we, because I don't work for them anymore. But one thing that I always was curious about, and this is kind of a side question, I always thought, because you're programmed to set up the tent and have the radios turned on 24 hours after a major event. It's going to get around the neighborhood really fast. that there's communication at that site where that red tent is. And I've always wondered how you handle that. Like, you'll have a bunch of people flooding in saying, you know, this person's hurt, that person's hurt, we need help. And they'll know that you can communicate when they can't. So that was just a side question that I always had working at the community center, was like, how do you deal with that situation?
Yeah, so it's very circumstantial, of course, and the ease with which it's going to be dealt with is going to depend on the number of volunteers available at the time and the amount of need available at the time. We do offer, as Lance was suggesting earlier, we offer trainings, free trainings for our volunteers all the time in all sorts of things, including crowd management and psychological first aid. And so that's something that that folks will get training in, and it really, you know, how exactly it's going to be handled, it's really going to be very circumstantial. It's going to really depend on the as I suggested, the number of volunteers available and their skill set.
Well, I applaud you guys for doing that, for sure.
Thank you.
One of the 4, I hope that people will please consider getting the training and becoming beacon volunteer.
Okay, well, we're going to advertise it in our takeaways, in our social media, our MailChimp list, and our website. So thank you very much. Any more questions for Ernie or for Lance? Okay, we'll stop that there. Then thank you so much for your presentations. It's been very edifying for me. Personally, I really did not. I've learned a lot. Thank you very much. And thank you very much for what you do.
Thank you.
All right, very fine. Well, now that concludes our general meeting now, and we will segue to our board meeting. So those who wish to stay for the board meeting, you're certainly welcome. And if you don't care to do that, then you are very free to sign off, except board members. We need our board members at the meeting.
Thanks again for having me.
Okay, thank you, Ernie. Thank you, Lance.
Thank you.
Deb and John, good to see you.
Thanks for coming.
Thanks. See ya.
Thank you, Ernie.
Okay, very fine. All right, so now we are going to go to our board meeting. I put together a special agenda to supersede the draft agenda that I had sent out, because we've had some, we're at a point where I feel that we need to stop and talk about our future. I want to bring up the alternative agenda, and so that you can all see it. We'll just look at it for a moment. I'm sorry, it's not larger. We have to, okay, let me see if I can. Let me see if I can increase.
I can see it just fine, Stephanie.
Can you? Oh, okay, very fine. All right. Let me go over the agenda very quickly, and then we can approve it if after making any adjustments to it that we want to make. All right, so let me ask you first, so do you want to take a little break and then come back? Or how are you doing? Okay, if we just continue? Okay.
I'm okay with continuing.
All right, very fine. And do we still have quorum? I'm here, Laura Lee, Kim, Derek is 4. We need 5. And we did have a 5th person who's missing.
Is Vivian?
Vivian.
Oh, Vivian is here. Perfect. Okay. Thank you, Vivian. All right. Okay, so let me quickly go through the agenda. First, there are 2 pieces of business that we should take care of before we start the discussion I would like to see happening. One, we have to note the resignation of Pam Hodge, and then I want to have us meet again next week to finish up business that, or take care of business that is generated here and that also would have been taken care of under our regular agenda. And then we have a section on our discussion, and I will read that when we get to it. So basically we have two parts. We have two pieces of business and then a section in which we will talk about where we stand and what our thoughts are about going forward. Is there anything else that someone would like to see on the agenda, or is this good enough for the moment?
Stephanie, I don't have anything to add other than I'll be out of town next week, just as an FYI.
Oh, okay, all right, fine. Thank you for letting me know. And well, we'll just have to make do next week then. All right. All right, so let's look at the two pieces of business. One is Pam Hodge has resigned from the board as of September 4th of this year. The Advantage Credit Union can't remove her name from our BDNA account until the Advantage representative can see our approved board minutes stating that Pamela Hodge did indeed resign on such and such a date. So I moved.
Stephanie, are we
Yes.
supposed to approve the new agenda first before we go into it, or are we just?
Oh gosh, yes, thank you very much, Laura Lee. I'm tired and confused. So any help that you can throw my way, all of you, please do. All right. I move that we approve this little agenda as it exists now. We haven't, and no one's offered any suggestions. Do I hear a second?
I second it.
Okay, thank you. All right, and all in favor, say aye.
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 Any nay votes? Okay, fine. All right, thank you, Laura Lee. All right, the agenda is approved. And we are still recording. I hope.
Did we get an aye from Vivian as well?
Vivian, are you there?
I said aye.
Okay,
Oh, good.
sorry.
Thank you.
I couldn't
Thank
see
you
it.
very much. Okay, all right. All right, to go back to Pamela Hodge, who resigned on September 4th from the board. I move that we duly note the fact that she did resign on, oops, it should be 4th of this year. So do we all duly note this? My motion is, do we duly note that she resigned? This will take care of the people at Advantage. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye, please.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay? Okay, no nays, all right. So we have adopted that. Okay, then I propose to call a special board meeting on the evening of September 14th. That's a week from this evening, to approve the September board meeting, board minutes. However, if so maybe if Kim will not be able to be there, but maybe Gail will be able to. I think Gail was trying to join us tonight and just could not get through. If we don't have a quorum, we need 5 people. On September 14th, we will not be able to approve the minutes.
And
It's still,
Stephanie, I think it's worth mentioning too on this one, this is Laura Lee speaking, that the only reason why we were going to hold a special board meeting just to approve the minutes was so that Pam could continue going to the Advantage Credit Union, taking her name off the account instead of having her wait until our October meeting. And so it was just a way of trying to ease the way of both the BDNA and for Pam.
there's that objective, but I also wanted to take up the business we would have taken up under the original draft agenda and continue our conversation.
And so how long were you thinking the meeting would be on the 14th then, Stephanie?
Probably about an hour. And if Kim, would it be possible for you to just drop in long enough to approve the minutes? Would you be able to connect in just to approve the minutes?
Well, I don't know because that's the day of the wedding on the 14th.
Oh, my goodness, I didn't understand. Oh, all right.
Oh, that's okay. I mean, you know, who gets married on a Thursday? But I guess they are.
Oh, you're going to somebody's wedding. I see.
But
Okay.
if you're in a pinch, text me and if I'm able to, I can, you know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. That would be very helpful. Because we're down people now, and so it's more difficult to achieve a quorum. And then I'll work with Gail too and try to find out what happened tonight, because I know she was hoping to join us. Okay, and thank you very much for your commentary, Laura Lee. Approving the minutes is the chief goal of next week's meeting. All right, so I want to read this little introduction and then invite a discussion here. BDNA now and going forward. Over the past 12 months, we have not had the labor force we would hope to have on a thriving neighborhood association board. Our core board members do not have many hours to devote to board work because almost all of us are employed. However, we are loyal and dedicated, and we clearly seek to serve our neighborhood. And the question is, how will we do that? But to return to the last 12 months, we've lacked a vice chair, so there has been no one for me to share work with, and a land use chair, so I've been doing land use work. I've been working hard to learn the basic job, and I also carry out some functions of the secretary, treasurer, and land use positions. For example, filing reports with the Secretary of State and Department of Justice, and have also spent time exploring possibilities for BDNA service to the community. It's been a great 12 months for me, or 11, whatever it is. I've really learned a lot, and I feel that BDNA can do some really fabulous things for the community, and I especially think that if we can use our communication powers. We have a great MailChimp list, a website, a basic website, and we hope to have a better website. And then we have Facebook postings, and we're able to reach out on behalf of others, for example, master gardeners, and do them a lot of good and advertise their events and their services. And this is a wonderful function that the BDNA can offer amongst many others. So anyway, we're at a point where we need to evaluate our resources and talk about what we'd like to achieve, because the present model, which is very chair-centric, and where the chair has been doing most of the work, and this is no one's fault except the chairs, but we need to consider making changes. And let me say, this is not a blame game. It's never crossed my mind to think that any of you are shirking, or you should have done this, or you should have done that. It was my choice to work as I have, learning the basic job and then exploring other possibilities over these 11 months. And it is, if I would like the board to step in and begin doing tasks, I have to make those tasks very clear and available. So as we talk, please understand that I'm not sulking and think, oh, I've been doing all this work and no one else is doing anything. That could hardly be further from the case. I appreciate all of you, and you've hung in there and been very dedicated, showing up month after month, and it's clear that you want to serve the neighborhood. So it's not a blame game. We will not make unreasonable demands. We'll do what we can. But the question is, what should we do going forward? Should we recruit more board members, advisors, volunteers? And if so, how do we do that? How can we excite others to join us? Do we want to commit to a minimal workload? For example, the recycling, the electronics recycling that's scheduled for the end of March. There are a series of discrete tasks that are associated with that I carried out this last time working with Tina. But it seems to me that if each of us takes up one of the tasks, we can all get it done, and it won't be just one person carrying out the list of tasks as last time, but I needed to do it. I needed to learn it. But for example, one of the tasks is to go to Oregon Printing Company, Derek, I'm talking to you, and pick up 4,000 inserts for the Bee that advertise our recycling event, and take them over to Selwood to Eric Norberg at his house, and pay him with a check that I will have provided. So Derek, that's probably something you could do, right? It's a one-time.
Yes, that's correct. I'd be happy to do it.
Okay, great. That's one task already gone. Another one is reserving the community center. Well, okay, Tina and I already did that. Another one is filling out a form for a Metro refresh grant using last year's language and working with this wonderfully helpful person at Metro named Kayla. It takes a few minutes to fill out this form. Probably somebody out on the board could do that. Maybe Kim DeLeo, you could do it in an evening or so on. Using the words, we've already filled it out last year. It's very easy, and maybe you could do that. And so
Yeah.
I'm just giving that as an example of sharing out the tasks for the recycling center in a way where we all do things together. And in fact, it's very gratifying that when you finally have the events, you say, oh, I did this, I did that, and if we just each take on something, then it becomes very easy to get it done. We become a temporary events committee together. So that's the second bullet point. If we don't want to do that, if we don't want to expend hours beyond meetings, we can hold meetings with the speakers and neighborhood artisans and some announcements. As we can do that, and essentially not really do very much. Or what else can we do? Or we could shut down the BDNA. There can be a gamut of things that we do. Now, I personally would hate to see us shut down. Okay, Laura Lee, go ahead.
So I wanted to jump in and because you guys all read the email that I had sent out earlier, I'm going to be bullet point number 1, 2, 3, 4 as a question mark. I feel that, and this is just my input for these questions. I think that it's important to recognize what we want to do and what we're actually able to do are two different things. And we are a small board right now with 6 board members. Recruiting is great. I think that we should definitely focus on that. But I will be honest that I had said I'm not able to commit to anything other than the bare minimum right now. And I had used the word, like coasting along for a little bit until we get more board members, just to keep the BDNA functioning, even if we're at a minimal functioning point right now. I think it's important to keep functioning, but adding tasks to the 6 board members, I think is going to be difficult. I know for me personally. So I think it's a great idea to have, the one event to focus on that in the spring and work together to get that done. I don't know if I'll be able to do much more to help right now than that. And I don't know how others feel, but that's kind of where I stand with what to do next. And my advice is just to keep on keeping on with the meetings and inviting guests and keep the workload small while we have a small board, and try to build up the board as much as we can.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Go ahead, Kim.
Laura Lee, sorry, I didn't get an email from you, so I apologize. I didn't read that. I just want a clarification. So Sparrowhawk is what, October?
Sparrowhawk is at the end of October, and Master Gardeners has supplied so many volunteers that we do not need to be burdened by.
Well, I was going to volunteer for that one.
Okay,
Because isn't like the amount that you get for your organization based on the number of people that show up?
in part, but we already get
Okay,
1,000 because we supplied the site.
okay.
And I want to make sure that we share with our other partners. So,
Okay.
but I haven't looked at the latest
Okay.
signups. And so there may be room for you to sign up. But right now we're trying to get Black Futures Farm volunteers in there. So I will let you know if there are any volunteer opportunities for Sparrowhawk, but to our surprise, it looks as though there may not be.
Okay, that's fine. I just didn't want to leave us in a lurch. For
Well,
that
thank
one.
you so much. Right. Yeah. And Laura Lee had suggested addressing
Okay.
Sparrowhawk, and then I overlooked it. So thank you for bringing that up.
Okay, so that one sounds like it's done. So then we would have the e-cycle event, and then Gail, I'm assuming, is going to do movies in the park in July, right?
I'm assuming so.
And I think those are really good to keep. So I'm happy to help with what we need to do to get either one of those going.
Okay.
As far as new recruits, have we put messages out on like Nextdoor and
No,
the
we
BD?
haven't done any kind of recruiting yet. Earlier this year, when so Pam had said she would work through the end of May, and then she didn't want to be treasurer anymore. And so I was trying to find a successor treasurer, and I advertised all over, and we essentially got no responses at all. It was impossible to scare up someone for that particular position. But I thought if we do a clever job of recruiting, and we excite people about what we would be working on, as opposed to we need a bookkeeper, then we would be able to have a better result. But I feel that I need to go through my file on volunteer work and come up with all the exciting possibilities that people could engage in. But some of the mainstream efforts are, one is to work with Impact Northwest on opening up the community center to our residents. And so far that's been a kind of closed operation, closed to our board. It was not my desire, but somebody else's. But now that person has gone, and I would very much like to have some board or advisor participation in some of the discussions that we have with Impact Northwest. I think it's very important to start spreading the excitement because we have a good vision. And so I'm going to be working on that.
Machu's here, and I'm just wondering if we could apply maybe for like a small grant or for just some light bookkeeping. I mean, we don't have lots of money coming in and out for the treasurer, for a treasurer report every month.
Right.
How would that work? Is it possible?
Well, the grants program is open right now.
Mm-hmm.
So, I'd review the handbook and see. One of the grants is like targeted outreach. So that might help you get to a solution that way. But it's also want to stress, there's a lot of neighborhoods that are having similar discussions. Not every neighborhood, but many. And I think what's really important here is a little bit of self-compassion, like recognize your successes, celebrate that, because like that's what's going to get people excited, is the great things you're doing, like the Brentwood-Darlington Community Center vision. I think lean into your successes, share that joy out into the community, and people gravitate towards it. But so you can definitely apply for grants. Just make sure it meets the criteria established in the handbook. And I could share that in the chat too.
Just
make sure.
And
I think that we should, I already said this to Stephanie earlier, but I think that we should make t-shirts saying BDNA, we'll do what we can, no guilt, no fear.
It's- we do
I
what
think-
we can, no guilt, no fear, right? Yeah.
Thank you for saying that, Matthew. I think leaning into your successes is something people forget to do. And I think it's extremely helpful with emotional states of board members, and also it's fantastic for communities.
Tina, are you raising your hand? Okay, go ahead.
In response to the t-shirt, if you really want them, I have a Cricut, I have iron-ons. You bring me a shirt, we can design it, and I'll cut them, you iron them.
I saw a shirt today. It reminded me. It says, "I burn sage and bridges."
I burn what?
Really, what? I burn sage and bridges.
Okay, wonderful.
I really want that shirt. I might come and see you, Tina.
Okay, well, you know, some of our other successes are, you know, I've learned by doing that, supporting our partners with advertising to our MailChimp list and our website is huge help. We're able to help Master Gardeners and the schools with Community Care Day. And there was something else that we also did, and it's escaping my mind, but that's been something we can help. So people who have skills in using MailChimp and posting on websites and so on, that, you know, we could certainly use those kind of skills, and we've been doing a good job already ourselves. And I found a very cool way to post stuff on MailChimp that makes it really fast and easy. Another thing we've done, when I was away on vacation, I participated in a Zoom meeting with Commissioner Mingus Mapps and the president of the Korean American Grocer Retail Owners of Oregon, Mr. Chris Kim, and they're representing stores all over Portland, but especially in our case, I wanted help for our 5 convenience stores. And this was really something wonderful that BDNA can do, is connect local problems with elected officials who can possibly help us. And Commissioner Mapps is setting up a meeting with Prosper Portland, and we're hoping to solve some problems that we've faced in getting money to help these stores repair the vandalism that they're continually undergoing. And so that is another celebration we can lean into, that we can connect our problems with problem solvers. And in fact, that's one of the purposes laid out in our bylaws. Another thing we can do that Southeast Uplift has wonderfully made possible is we can provide event insurance to local informal efforts like the artisan market, and then they can happen because they've got liability insurance, and it's a fantastic offering. So that's another thing we can celebrate, that we help make it possible for local informal groups to carry out whatever events that they want. So that there's things that we're doing already that we can advertise to prospective board members that we can be very proud of. And then, all right, and then if we have our t-shirts, join the board, get a t-shirt.
I also wanted to add to that, Stephanie, that I was the one who was very hesitant on the insurance for the artisan market. And I am going to put my tail between my leg and say that I went to it, and it was such a nice little event in the neighborhood. It was very hot that day, but they were out there, and we had a good time. It was 2 blocks from my house. And I think that is something we should lean into and help our different areas of our neighborhood host small artisan markets like that.
Right, so that's something we can advertise too. So if you like, I could put together a little resume of things that we can be proud of, that we can lean into, celebrate, that we can pass on to others. And I also feel that each of us should be reaching out as much as we can remember, no shame, no blame. We do what we can by reaching out to family members or friends or neighbors, saying, we have a specific job on the board that needs to be done. We need people to post on our MailChimp list. Would you be interested in that? Or we need people who will help our little local groups get insurance when they need it. It's not a difficult process. We finally mastered that. And Southeast Uplift is making it very, very easy. And so we should be taking advantage of that. But I can make a list of things that we can advertise to people. And next week, too, when we talk some more, we can maybe make a plan for how we go about recruiting people. I think we should be methodical about it and careful, and make sure that we're exciting people and drawing them into something that's really wonderful. So I really feel that we have so much potential as a neighborhood association to offer incredible service to our neighborhood. And in fact, the Artisan Market has reserved an afternoon in December to hold a second one, this time at the community center. So we'll be seeking insurance for them again, and so they can do this. So would you like me to do that, to draw up a list of wonderful things to advertise to prospective board members and share it with you next week? Yes,
I
no?
think that'd be great. I was wondering, I know Vivian's being quiet because probably she has somebody sleeping near her. I was curious on Derek and Vivian's input. Kim and I have already spoke, and I would love to hear Gail's input as well about the future of BDNA.
Yeah, I'm very sorry that Gail's not here.
Yeah.
So, yeah, Derek, would you like to voice some opinions about where you see BDNA going?
I can speak if Derek is not ready.
Yeah, I don't see him now. Okay. Go ahead, Vivian. Thank you.
Yeah, she just fell asleep, so I am not bound anymore. I hear a lot of positive and encouraging things, and I feel like we all feel that disbanding BDNA would be too drastic, and that there's still a lot of work that the group can do and is doing and has done. While I say that, I recognize that my own commitment is pretty tenuous, and even attending the monthly meetings is pretty hard for me. But I do have availability throughout the week, and I would love to contribute more. I just don't know what's going on behind the scene and how I can contribute.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I'm excited to do more, and I guess in the limited ways that I can. So yeah, I'm happy to continue and be a part of the group.
Well, I certainly get that vibe from the board as a whole, that they want BDNA to continue, and that they would like to do more as possible. Now, we're all employed, and you are mom of a very active toddler, so we understand the restrictions. So again, no blame here, no guilt, no blame. So okay, go. And I just want to say that we're going to do what we can, but we will seek more people. We're the core, and let's surround ourselves with more.
I just want to emphasize the do what we can, but also I don't know what there is to do.
Right.
So I think that's why I was saying, if there's a list of things that need to be done, then I can say, well, I can contribute in this way. Yeah. It was great to know the Sparrowhawk sale was coming up and that volunteers were needed, so that I could start clearing or making a note in my calendar for it.
No, that's fine. And I feel my responsibility. I've got a folder of lists of things that need to be done and that people could step up and do. And so that's on me. I know that people would like to do things, but they don't know what to do. So I am very understanding of that. I'm very aware of that. Kim DeLeo, you have your hand up.
Okay, so first, I think we should recognize what a great job you've done in the last 11 months and how appreciative I'm sure we all are that you've taken the reins to keep the BDNA going. And then I just wanted to kind of second what Vivian was saying. I think we should outline the projects that we want to keep moving forward, like Sparrowhawk, the e-cycle, movies in the park. And when it comes to that stuff, have a list of items that you need people to do. Because I'm definitely a person that I need to be kind of told, hey, I need help with this. So maybe, so maybe if we had a list of tasks, that way you weren't in charge of doing all of them. If we each took one task, that probably would be doable. And we could pick the tasks based on where we were that week with work and private lives, etc. But I like that idea of maybe having a list.
No, I can do that.
Pick it up.
Absolutely, I can do that. And I understand that that is what's needed. It would be very unreasonable for me to feel, as I said earlier, oh, nobody's helping me. They don't know what to do. You want to help. I feel it coming from all of you. So that's not a question. It's me listing the tasks. Laura Lee.
I wonder if you can do a sign up genius thing for, like you said, for the e-cycling in March. You can send it to the board members of the precise tasks, and then we can fill in our names as we can do things.
I like that idea. So I'll have to learn how to use Sign Up Genius, but I'm glad to do that. And it sounds like a very nice idea. And we can do the same thing for movies in the park. And then I know Gail wanted to have a national night out in August, but as we get closer, we'll see what our resources are and so on. So it seems to me like there are two tasks here. One is for me to let you know what needs to be done specifically. And I like the idea of the Sign Up Genius. So I will do that. And then the other is to lay out what we're good at and how we're serving the neighborhood and use it to excite, attract new board members and advisors and volunteers. It doesn't have to be only board members, but it'd be nice if we could increase our board membership by 2-3 people, and just to give us a little more quorum capacity for the future. But it could be a whole range of engagement, so I can make that clear too. So those are 2 tasks that I will work on. And
I think we've all agreed that having these 3 things that Kim mentioned, the e-cycle event, movies in the park, and Sparrowhawk, which we probably don't have to participate in volunteering. So we can substitute that with the community center, making sure the community center stays active, and just focus on those 3 projects and not just have a whole bunch of stuff coming in where we start feeling guilty again for not being able to help you.
No, I think that's a very important point, Laura Lee, is to stay focused, and I don't want anyone feeling guilty. And no guilt, no blame. Remember our t-shirts, no guilt, no blame. Okay, well, any other comments? I mean, I feel heartened by listening to you saying, oh, you want to keep going. Tell you what needs to be done, and then you'll see whether you can do it. And you're willing to help recruit more board members, advisors, and so on. So I didn't see anything about shutting down the BDNA. So I'm really happy to hear that. It's encouraging to me. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate you all very much, because you're really a quite warm-hearted, dedicated bunch, and it's clear that you want to serve our neighborhood. It's crystal clear to me. So
I do think we should take Machu up on applying for a small grant for, even if it's outreach.
No, okay, that's my third thing, right? I will look into the grants and see whether
And
any of
there's,
those are possible, but I also feel that there are also maybe outside grants, that we could possibly tap into that could get us through a year of bookkeeping and so on.
I will mention that there's more funding this year than there has ever been before. So more funding for projects, more money to go around. So hopefully that encourages you to apply.
Okay, is there a deadline looming?
Let me see, it's not my program, but I could find the information real quick. I think it's end of October.
Oh, okay, that's not bad. Okay, so task list, recruiting excitement, and then look at grants. See, I like that idea of seeking some money to pay a bookkeeper. It is not an arduous job. It's just sort of time consuming for part of the month, and then it's every month, looking at keeping track of our funds, but we're not complicated. We're not a big corporation. So it'd be nice if we could just hire somebody to do that. Okay, any other comments? Okay, so one thing I would like to do regarding new board members is to have potential board members fill out a form. Laura Lee has seen this form, and the basic is an interest form and skills. What are you interested in? What skills can you bring to us? What are your concerns for the neighborhood, and so on, so that we get an idea of the people who are applying to the board, so we can exercise some discrimination if necessary. If we get people who, there just may be people who don't have any interest, who don't know why they want to belong, and or they're looking for a social club as opposed to work club or something. Maybe that will come out. But in the past, we've welcomed board members, as anyone who walks through the door and wants to join the board, then we say welcome. But that doesn't always serve us well. So I'd like to. I'll share this form with you that I've shared with Laura Lee, and I would like your commentary on it, and we could make it more rigorous if necessary, but I feel that it's important to have prospective board members just go through some sort of ritual application to so that they know that we're taking this very seriously. But I will share that.
And it's not a bad idea either, because even on neighborhood Facebook groups, they ask you a few questions before, because they want to make sure that you're part of the neighborhood, and that your interests in the groups are, within Brentwood Darlington. So I think having a form for board members is actually a very good idea, because it helps the person who's applying think about things as well, instead of just jumping right in blindly.
Right, very good. Yeah, those are good comments, Laura Lee. Thank you very much. Okay, so I'd like to meet again next week, if at all possible. I'll have some minutes. I'm going to do them, Laura Lee, because you are swamped. So I will do the minutes for that meeting, and then you can work on the other minutes from, I think, July, right? And then together we'll bring everything up to date. So thank you so much. I realize that Laura Lee has a very, very taxing full-time job. And at the same time, she's hung in there as our secretary month after month, and been a very supportive presence to me, which I have appreciated. And I'm never going to forget how she kept the BDNA from sinking into a morass, into a swamp last year. You kept it going, Laura Lee, and I'm always going to be grateful to you for that. What you stepped up out of your secretary role and you became the leader of the association for at least 2 months, 3 months, and you made it possible for us to survive a very severe crisis. So I have tremendous appreciation for you and your efforts. So thank you.
Well, thank you, Stephanie. I keep trying to resign and you guys keep pulling me back in. So here I am.
It just, if you just do the minutes, okay? If you'll just stick with us and do the minutes. If you can't, let me know. I will help. But don't leave us, because you're such an important presence on our board. I know I'm unfairly putting pressure on you. I'm sorry. You really need to do what's best for your life. But I hope that what's best for your life includes us.
I am curious though, Stephanie, if the meetings are recorded, do we really need minutes? Yeah, Machu's saying yes. Okay.
Right.
Yeah,
and
it's
we
city
just-
standard. You have to have written minutes. They don't have to be exhaustive, just like the motions made, who's in attendance, and a brief summary of what was discussed. So
Yeah, we can keep them pretty tight, pretty minimal, and just go by the agenda, what happened. Yeah, as Matthew said. So we'll try to get it down to a system.
Just curious, from the recording, if you have like closed captioning on, does it print out what was said in the meeting?
I don't.
It does, but trust me,
It's not good. Yeah.
it takes so long to
Okay.
go through that. So no, we haven't. No, Stephanie and I have come up with a very simple template for the minutes, and I've been using that, and it's been working very well. So
Yeah.
I'm good. No worries.
Good. Okay, wonderful. All right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
No,
thank
we
you,
do-
Laura Lee.
Yes, thank you, Laura Lee. Yeah, no, we do need to minimize the amounts of time and effort that these basic administrative functions take. And as for the treasurer's report, I'm thinking that a monthly statement from the credit union can do us quite well. If I'll have to do these for a while if I don't have time to do a full report. So I think we can get by with that very well. We just need to know how much money we have, right? Take a look at what we're spending, and which isn't much right now.
So Stephanie, would that be, is that now that Machu's here, that might be helpful. So if we just had the bank statement, would that be sufficient for a report rather than?
There's no requirement in our bylaws as to what needs to be in a treasurer's report, so we can make it whatever we want, whatever is useful to us. I tend to see ours right now as possibly overcomplicated, but let me give it some thought. Okay.
Okay.
And but yeah, let's try to go lean and mean and meet the requirements of that come from the outside, but also meet our internal requirements for knowledge, but no more. We don't need to make it to overly elaborate.
Right. No, I definitely agree with, if there's stuff we can minimize that's not needed, we should do that.
Yes.
To take the burden off of people, because, I just thought the treasurer's report, just from the outside looking in, seemed pretty convoluted.
I want to have another look at it myself. I called up Advantis and asked how to get the monthly statements, and now I know. And I thought, I think the monthly statements would just be fabulous to have. And so I'm going to try to think through an easier approach to than what we've had. So thank you for bringing that up, Kim. We're on the same wavelength here. Absolutely. Okay, so the things that we didn't look at tonight because we had our discussion are the treasurer's reports for June and July. Eventually we'll approve the July minutes. I wanted to give a report on Movies in the Park briefly, which was a big success, thanks to Gail. And I wanted us to officially approve use of the BDCC by Net and Beacon people. Whenever they want to meet there, it's a BDNA event, therefore covered by insurance and approved by us officially. And then I had started to work on a strategic plan and budget. I'm a little way into it. It's very simple, and essentially we've covered it tonight by saying, let's keep things simple. The Sparrowhawk, then the e-cycling event, and then movies in the park. That's the same as what I have laid out. So, I mean, we can visit this, but just in terms of approving them, I would like to see us approve a mission statement. I would like to bring that, get that conversation going. And then we were already talking about getting people to do different individual tasks. That's something that we've already addressed tonight for the spring green. And I've talked to you about now beginning to abide by the portion of our bylaws that allows the community to suggest agenda topics. And we were going to begin that in October. I'll start advertising it. And maybe, so Kim, I'm just asking you to drop in to approve the minutes. So you don't need to do a report to us about Southeast Uplift. And then we'll just let you know again where Sparrowhawk stands, and that's it. Okay, it's 8:30 on the dot. Shall we stop?
Yeah, I just thought, did we want to make a motion to let the Beacon and Net teams? Did you want to vote on that tonight, or did you want to
Well,
say?
why not? Since
Yeah.
is Derek still here? Because I don't think we have a quorum.
I think Derek left.
Oh, okay,
Oh, okay, so we can't.
okay,
All right, we'll just have to do that next
okay.
time. All
Sounds
right.
good.
Okay, so let me stop
Let's leave.
the screen sharing.
We're
Yeah,
on time.
let's leave.
We're so awesome.
Yeah, I know.
Stephanie,
Thank you.
Stephanie,
You're
could I
all
ask you-
awesome. I appreciate you tremendously. And all right, let's go forward, and we're going to bloom. We're going to
Yes.
serve our community, and we're going to do good. And thank you all. Okay. Good night.
Thank
Good
you.
night.
Bye.
Let's see. Oh no.